Hello, everybody. This is Robyn Wahl from Eastern Kentucky University, and I am excited to be able to share with you what we are doing in our on-campus clinic. Due to COVID-19, we have had to discontinue our in-person services, as many of you have, and we were able to quickly transition to telepractice. We already had the infrastructure and the paperwork in place. And it's been a pretty exciting, albeit crazy, time for us. But as I've done training for our students and our supervisors, I've heard that many of you are contemplating, or your workplaces are contemplating, asking you to do telepractice, and that's freaking you out. So I wanted to give some guidance. I want it to be known that this is my understanding of telepractice and the laws that go with it and the technology needs. I am not an expert. I am also not an attorney. So none of the information that you're giving, you are given today is legal advice. You need to make sure that you're checking with attorneys at your workplace and making sure that you guys are doing what you need to be doing to make sure you're in the letter of the law. So with that said, I would like to share with you some of the training that I've done for our students, starting with some of the rules and the laws that are guiding us as we make this transition. So HIPAA is the confidentiality rule for those of us that work outside of schools. In schools, you work under the law called FERPA, and those guidelines are a little different. So you're going to need to look into those, but I'll talk quickly about HIPAA. The federal laws about patient confidentiality have stated that you have to have a HIPAA compliant platform. So the software you are using. We are using Zoom, and I'm going to show you a lot about Zoom in this training and how it works and some ideas for therapy, which I think everybody is asking for. And the federal law says you have to have a compliant platform with a business associate agreement with that company. So that's what the guidelines say. However, the federal guidelines gave an exception for COVID-19, and I put the link here, and I'll post these in the comments, the links in the comments, that during COVID-19, you do not have to have a business associates business agreement with the platform that you're using. You will want to check with your employer to see where you stand in that. Other HIPAA laws, which I believe also apply to FERPA, that you must ensure the privacy of your client and yourself. So you need to have a private space to do therapy. You need to not be interrupted. The guidelines state that you cannot be the primary caregiver at home. Basically, you can't be home alone with your kids and be doing teletherapy because your attention is divided. And our scope of practice says that we need to give our clients our full attention during therapy, and we can't have divided attention. So no interruptions. Also, we can't have interruptions where your screen can be seen. You don't want your clients to, their client's confidentiality to be shown. You don't want your spouse to walk by and see who your clients are. The next thing is that state laws still apply. However, today is March 25th at 5 o'clock, and I got the update from the state licensure board with a change to what I already have listed here. So I've put the link, and they are going to be posting that letter outlining the change, though the link wasn't working when I tried it a few minutes ago. However, state laws still say, and your license says you need to work within your scope of practice and within our code of ethics. And I believe that goes without saying. But state law about telepractice in Kentucky requires many things. The three I think are most important. Number one is what has just been waived. So the law says that to do telepractice most of the time, you have to have had an initial contact with the person in person. So you can't just start seeing patients via telepractice without seeing them in person first. However, the state has just lifted that for COVID-19. So if you haven't yet seen a client, you can now start seeing them through telepractice. The second is that you need to have a signed consent for telepractice services. Many of your clients have signed consent for services, but they have not signed consent for telepractice, which is a whole nother monkey, as y'all are learning. And so you need to make sure that they understand the risks and the responsibilities that come with telepractice. Another thing is that you have to have emergency contact information of who to contact if there's an emergency. So this is really set up to protect you, because if you are doing telepractice with an adult and they have a seizure and they fall down and they're in their home alone and you have absolutely no way to help them, you need to have a contact number that you can call a person that is able to help them. So you've got to have that emergency contact person. I believe that person needs to be on site, but I'll need to check the law on that one. With children, obviously you would have a person on site and we want them to be involved, and we'll talk about that later. But you do need to have that emergency contact information. So in case of an emergency, you know how to help the people. And ASHA standards still apply. They have posted several times, they keep updating, which is fabulous, some coronavirus updates. And basically they're saying that you still need to work within your scope of practice and code of ethics. They have other rules that apply specifically to students and supervision. And I shared that with our students, but I will move on because that does not apply to most of you. Okay, let's talk about our clients. Not every client is going to be a good candidate for telepractice. You guys know your clients well, and you know how many of them struggle to sit still and have an in-person session. So we've got clients that are very young or limited verbal and may not be able to participate. So what we really want is for everybody to have access to our services. What we can try is that a parent or guardian is expected to be sitting with them. And it honestly might turn more into you coaching the parent or guardian through play. I was given the advice of put the laptop down on the floor by the play situation, and the parent and the kid are playing with Mr. Potato Head, and the kid wants the nose and is reaching for it, and you could say, okay, mom, now hold on to the nose and make her request it, make her ask for it. And you could be coaching through being the hands of the parent while they're doing playtime. It also can turn into really just a face-to-face, have a conversation with the parent and give them some advice and some information to help them complete some therapy activities at home, which honestly I think would be a great idea, because if you only see them 1 hour a week or even less, giving the parents some good advice I think would be very valuable. I'd say, you know your clients the best, and I wouldn't rule out any client until you've given it a try. You might surprise yourself and they might surprise you. A lot of us know that our clients are a little obsessed with technology. So if we're letting them play on a screen as part of therapy, they might engage more than we think they will. I think it's important to also remember that it is important to be doing therapy within your scope of competency, which is different than our scope of practice. I am a pediatric SLP and you don't want me doing dysphagia treatment right now. I took the classes and passed them, but I am not competent. So those of you that are feeling nervous about telepractice, it's because you are not competent with it. So you need to be doing training and learning about how to get competent before you're doing therapy that way. It's not to say that I couldn't become confident or competent in dysphagia therapy with some training. I could go to classes, I could do CEUs, and then I would consider myself competent. And it's up to us to decide that. But you need to make sure that you are in your scope of competency. And if you are not, then figure out how you need to get there. And we've kind of already talked about having an adult helper with them. I've told all of our clients to have an adult in the room with the client, some of them for behavior and concentration issues, mostly to help with technology. And I've created a kind of a quick guide for how to use Zoom for parents. So we're sending that to the parents of our children clients, and then I've got another one for adult clients of how to use some of the features of Zoom from their end that some of our kids won't be able to figure it out. It'd be nice to have an adult in the room to do that. Okay, some of your technology needs. Most of you have a work laptop that you've brought home and are doing work from home. So you need to have some type of a computer, laptop or desktop. Most of ours now have an internal webcam and microphone. If you don't, then you need an external webcam and microphone, which are hard to get on Amazon these days. So hopefully maybe your facility has some that you can plug in. You do need consistent and reliable internet, which is tricky, and you need to ensure that your client has consistent and reliable internet, which I know we're very concerned about our students in public schools not having access to internet. So you need to talk to your clients and figure out what they have, because they need all of these things too. They need a device where they can get on the internet with a webcam so you can see them. Some people like to have the headphones and mic. I don't really like it on my face and on my ears. So I'm just speaking out loud in the room and it seems to work fine. And we've talked about a HIPAA and FERPA compliant system. Chromebooks are not recommended. I have been told that they don't work well with Zoom. I don't know if that's getting better or not, but if you are working from a Chromebook as your primary technology, you might consider switching to a laptop or desktop. iPads can work. They're not ideal because the screen size is pretty small. And that's the problem with iPhones. Your clients might use an iPhone because they could see you, but if you share your screen on their phone, it is tiny, 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 and they're going to have a hard time seeing it. But using your iPhone as the primary source for teletherapy is not recommended for those same reasons. Okay, here's my little pep talk. Is I know we're scared of doing telepractice, but really your imagination can take you a long way and some good ideas. So I'm hoping to share some here. All right, this is kind of the talk my students down moment. They were all so worried about when glitches are going to happen and the internet isn't reliable and it's going to go out and all of these kind of worries. And I'm here to say, yes, all of those things probably will happen. So we just need to understand that we're all trying something new and it's going to be okay. So if you lose the connection, it's okay. You both have the link where you joined the Zoom meeting. Just go back, click on the link and try to rejoin. Most of the time you can join back in and keep going. It was just a temporary internet loss. Sometimes the connection gets poor and you kind of get frozen or their faces get frozen. And sometimes it's best to just wait it out or go back and just say with audio, I'm going to go out and I'll try to reconnect. You do the same and I'll meet you back here in a minute, and just use that link and try to reconnect. The next one, we're going to have behavior issues of the kid running out of the room and then we're sitting here screaming, Johnny, Johnny, come back. And there's nothing you can do about it. Hopefully the parent in the room can help with that situation. In our situation, I've told our students, it's okay if you don't get your full session in. If you have tried and it's just not happening today, then it's okay to continue. You put that in your treatment note and you explain what happened and it's okay. And I think we're all going to have technical issues. I probably will today, as I'm about to show you how Zoom works and some things on Zoom. And we're just going to have to be patient with each other. The clients are going to have technical issues. We're going to have technical issues, and we are just going to have to laugh about it. Most speech paths that I know are pretty type A people, and we don't like things when they don't go perfectly, and we're going to have to let that go. Okay, so planning for your first session, or sessions if you're going to be doing a bunch in a day. I would say the first thing is to practice, practice, practice. If you are using a Zoom account from your facility or from your school district, you might not have the pro version, but Zoom has a free practice or basic version that you can download on your computer and get an account. And you can practice with, I believe, all the same features as pro, with the only limitation being you're limited to a 40-minute meeting. But you can have a 40-minute meeting and then it ends and you start another 40-minute meeting. I don't think there's any limitation on how many 40-minute meetings you can have. So I would say get comfortable with the technology, practice it out, and play with the screen sharing and all of these things that I'm going to show you here in a bit. The more comfortable you feel with the technology, your stress levels will go down. And then the way we're doing it is I'm setting up all the meetings and then sending the clients and student clinicians a link to their private room where they'll have their Zoom meeting. And so I told them, once I send that link, that room is open to them whenever. So it is my understanding with Zoom that even though the meeting is set for 2 o'clock on Wednesday, you can go into that room and play with Zoom in that situation anytime. The link is an open room. It's just, it's not dedicated to only the time the meeting was set. And then overplan your activities. I think this goes to in-person sessions as much or as well. You want to have so many activities planned and so many materials that you have backups for your backups. As you know, clients will refuse to do something, or the technology won't work, or something is not going to go well. And so the more plans you have, the more you'll be able to keep them entertained for a while. Okay, this is mostly for my students, but I think important for everybody. I would say that you should log in before your client. You could screen share a screen that says, I'll be right there or something. And you want to make sure to test the technology day of before you log in. I would encourage you to be there before the student is there, just for their sake, to help them feel more comfortable, that when they pop in, they see you instead of a blank screen. And I think this kind of goes without saying, but you need to be presentable. Many of us are in our bathrobes and jammy pants most days now, but at least from waist up where you'll be seen, you need to make sure that you are presentable. And then be animated. If all they can see is your face and hear your voice, it's going to be much more important that we really think about our facial expressions and our vocal quality, and our changes in pitch and volume are really going to come through on a screen. So be cognizant of how you are presenting yourself. And then the last thing here, I believe this is a safety concern, that I would want the student or the client to log off first. That way, I know that when I left them, they were fine. But if I log off first and then the client has some kind of a medical emergency in a room by themselves, I wasn't there to help. And it makes me feel better to know that when I left them, when they left me, they were doing fine. So I encourage you to be the first on and last off. Okay, materials. This is what you all want to know. This is what most of us are freaking out about. How do you do it? How do you even interact with somebody and do therapy this way? Number one is you don't have to be fancy. Things can be very, very simple. And then if you want to get more brave, you can move on to more complex activities. But I'm going to give you some ideas of both. And then right now, there are so many people sharing ideas. If you are on Instagram, on any of the SpeechPath social media sites, you are almost bombarded with all of the people talking about telepractice ideas and free webinars here and there and everywhere. Pinterest has a ton of good stuff. So get on and spend a little time just looking around. I'm going to give you some fun ideas too that I've found in my searches. So I'll share those with you in a minute. But the caveat is, before you attempt a material, make sure it works. There are websites that look great and you've read about it, but then when you pull it up in front of the client, it doesn't work like you thought it was going to. And it works, but not how you wanted it to. And that's frustrating for both people. So play around with it and make sure it works as intended. And then another issue is pop-ups. How many of you guys have been watching a YouTube video and something very inappropriate pops up? And it's not okay. So you need to make sure that if you're going to watch a YouTube video with a client or go to a website with a client, that pop-ups are disabled, or that you can be aware of what commercials come on before or after the video. Or even on YouTube, the recommended videos down the right side of your screen often are totally random and very strange. So you want to make sure that you don't have strange things on your screen. Okay, so here's kind of the types of activities from basic to more complex. Hard copy materials are totally fine. And from hard copy, I'm meaning real objects that you hold up to your screen. If I have a client that's working on describing, why couldn't I hold up my coffee cup and make them describe it? What's it for? What's its shape? What's its color? What's it made out of? All of those describing questions. What's its category? You can hold up lots of real items and do therapy just like you would in your room with materials. Most of us aren't going back to our workplaces, so it might be things around our homes, but that might be better because it's things around our clients' homes too. from real items that you hold up. That could be books. You don't have to do some fancy online book, just like all of our teachers are reading books to our kids on our social media pages. You can hold up a book and read it and then show the pictures on the screen just as easily, but you stop and ask questions and do some dialogic reading with it. Very easy to do and not intimidating. I'll show you guys screen share technology, but you don't necessarily have to screen share a web page. You could screen share a Word document or a PDF that you have found on Teachers Pay Teachers that has, an R word list, and you share that. And so your video is on half the screen and the Word document with your R word list is on the other half, and you're asking the kid to make a sentence with each one, or whatever that may be. I'm a PowerPoint girl, or Google Slides works the same. You could create a PowerPoint or a slide show that shows different things on each slide. One slide might be your R word list, and they do this. The next slide might have a worksheet that you complete answering WH questions about a passage that they read. And then the next slide has another activity. Or you could put, if you're doing Artic, you could put a photo on each slide and you scroll through and it changes the photos rather quickly and pretty easily. It does take a little advanced practice on your side to set it up and put photos on there. But if you Google it, I'm sure somebody's already created it. There's so many people that are sharing things. There are probably PowerPoints for every sound out there. Zoom has a whiteboard, which is very cool, and I'll show that here in a minute. It's just like you would use a whiteboard in therapy. If your client is inserting a schwa in a sound or in a word, and you want to show them, write out the word and show them that there is not an extra sound here. You can pull up the whiteboard and draw, or use a text box, or however you want to do it, just like you would use a whiteboard in your therapy room. And then all of the online activities. We talked about YouTube videos. You could watch a video and then talk about it, answer questions about it, do pragmatic language therapy about what they did right, what they did wrong, role play it, lots of ways to use YouTube. Interactive games, and I said see info about annotation options. Annotation is them writing on the screen or you writing on the screen. So you want to check that out. I'll teach you here in a little bit, but you could play games online and share control of the screen, and it's a pretty cool feature. And then we've talked about book reading, but there are so many book reading sites that are now giving free access to teachers for the next couple months. So you could listen to somebody else read a book. But what we do is called dialogic reading, where we stop and we talk about how many sounds we heard on that page, or we ask questions, or we learn vocabulary from that book. So many ways to do book reading sites. This is a list of some of my favorites for different activities. Education.gov has a ton of worksheets. I don't love them, but I don't love worksheets entirely, but if that's what you need, search there. They've got some good stuff. The books, ReadWorks is cool. I'll show it to you here in a little bit. Spinners and dice. If you're playing a game, which there are lots that you could play and have a board game on the screen, and then you do a virtual dice roll, and it's virtual dice roll, I think it's .com, and it's literally a set of dice, and you click on it and they roll and land, so you know how many places to move. Wheeldecide.com is a spinner, and you can use it for just numbers, but what's also cool is you can personalize the spinner. So you could put, K words on the spinner, and they spin it and then have to make a sentence with whatever comes up. or however you would like to do it. So that could be the therapy activity in and of itself. And then I'm going to show you some of these websites. Boom Learning, I've just discovered, and it blew my mind. So I'm going to show that here in a minute. And Kia, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, QUIA.com. I've used for years and years and years in person with therapy, and it just works perfectly for telepractice. So I'm going to show you that one here in a minute too. This is a list that I took from online of some other activities or websites that would be good for SLP telepractice. Some of them are links and others you'd have to copy and paste into your browser. Okay, so you've got your materials, you're ready to go. It's almost time. I would consider making sure that you are organized in your materials and on your screen. So with your materials, I might consider making a folder for each client. If you're going to see multiple clients, you're going to have multiple links and all kinds of things probably on your screen as you've been planning. You might copy paste the links for Jimmy onto a Word document that you save as Jimmy. That way, if there's a technical difficulty or if you can't find the activity that you were going to do with him and he's on the screen, you can go quickly to your Word document, hit that link, and then there's the activity he had, and you don't have to Google it while he's waiting. So that's a good idea. Also, you'll want to pre-plan before the client pops in. You're going to want to have everything pulled up on your screens. If you're going to screen share things, you need to have them open, not minimized. If they're minimized, you cannot screen share them. So I guess the best way to describe it is you have to have multiple things open in layers. And then when you screen share, you can see all the things that are open and pick from them. I'll show you what that looks like here in a minute. Okay, I went through the Zoom, or I'm going to show you the Zoom basics, and then I will give you a live view of Zoom. So if you're not going to be using Zoom, other technologies are pretty much the same, but this is tailored to what I know, which is Zoom. So once you start your meeting, you have these controls at the bottom of your screen. If they're not there, move your mouse and this black bar will pop up. Across the bottom, I'll just read through and show you what is there. So your bottom left is where you can mute your mic or turn off your video. Or if you have plugged in a headset and it's not working, you click that little caret or up arrow beside the mic and you can choose what type of audio device you're going to use. Or if you're using an external webcam, you click the little caret beside the video and choose which device you'll be using for video. So that's where you can turn off your mic or on your mic too. As you go across, there's an invite button, which for therapy, we're not going to be inviting anybody else into our sessions because we have HIPAA concerns. So that's a no-no for us. Manage participants, if you click that, you can see who is in your meeting. And I believe if you are the host, you can mute people. So if your client is screaming or whatever, or you just don't want to hear it right now because you need to be talking or whatever reason, if you click that, you can select people and mute them. Polls, I don't think will work for us. It's a way if there's a bunch of people in a meeting to take a poll of the room and see, take a vote with the 2 of you or 3 of you on the screen, not going to be a problem. Share, we'll talk about in a minute. Chat opens a chat box on the right side of your screen, which might be helpful for you if you have a parent in the room and you want to give them some information or send them a link to a website that you want them to pull up. Lots of things that you could use chat for, but most of the time you'll be just talking, you wouldn't need to chat. Record is an option. But we don't need to be recording our sessions for HIPAA and FERPA reasons. We don't need our clients' images saved onto our computer. So I would suggest no recording. Breakout rooms don't apply for teletherapy. I don't think anybody's going to be doing group therapy. I don't know the rules on it, but I think for FERPA concerns, you can't have more than one person in a therapy session at a time. So that's the controls at the bottom of your screen. And then end meeting, of course, would be how you would exit and log out. Okay, screen sharing. So that green button in the middle that said share. When you hit that button, it will pop up a window like this, and it shows all of the things I have open. And so screen 1 is your desktop, and I would highly recommend not sharing your desktop. So having things open in other tabs, or like Explorer or Chrome, having things open where you can share them as individual screens. Because if you have your desktop open and you have things set to give you pop-up notifications, or your desktop is a hot mess like mine with all of the icons all over it, it's embarrassing for your email from whatever to pop up, and your client will see anything that happens on that desktop screen. So the only time I would use the desktop is if I wanted to have multiple quote unquote screen shares at the same time. So if I wanted to have a web page up and the dice, so I was going to play a board game online and have the dice, the only way to have 2 screens shared at the same time is to have them on your desktop. So that's the only time I would do it. You also have a whiteboard, which I'll show you here in a second. There's an option to connect to your iPhone or your iPad, which is very cool, and I'll tell you about that here in a second. And then others are all the things that you have open. So I've got a few things open I'm going to show you here in a few minutes, and I'll show you how that works. I do want to point out that the 2 little buttons at the bottom of the page are share computer sound and optimize for full video or whatever, full screen video clip. If you are going to be playing a YouTube video or a website that has sound, you want to make sure that your client can hear that sound. Otherwise, they'll just be watching a video with no sound. So you want to click those, and then on the bottom right, you have to click share for that share to actually happen. Okay, so here's the whiteboard. If you select whiteboard, it pops up and it has this black bar with all of your choices. You can use the draw choice and doodle as I have with your mouse, or if you are using a touch screen, you can do it with your finger. There's stamps, erasers, all of those things. You have to allow your client to annotate. And that means, allow your client to draw on the screen. And so the way you do that is to hover your mouse over that little green and red box that's in the top of the screen. And when you do, options will come up. And one of them is allow participants to annotate. Once you do that, then the client has access to write on the screen. You also can turn off their access if they get a little out of control, which many of them will. And I learned the trick that the shortcut to turn off their permissions is Control-Shift-G. So I'm going to put that into my memory to turn off their rights if they start getting a little free with the annotation. So the whiteboard's a really cool feature. Okay, the next thing is to share websites or documents, whatever you have to share. So if you have a Word document that you want to pull up and they can read whatever you have written, you do that. Or websites, you can give them annotating rights just the same as you did in the whiteboard. You put your mouse on the green and red and it opens up more options and you can allow participants to annotate. you can see here that this client has circled what is the transportation out of those three. This is where a helper in the room can really be handy, because if you're saying, which one of these is transportation, or which one of these can carry you places, most of our clients will just touch it, and they're used to a touch screen, but you don't see what they're touching. And all you see is their big finger coming at the webcam, but you don't know what they actually touched. So turn on annotation and ask them to color in, or to do something like that, where they can indicate what their choice was. Or the helper can say, that's right, you touched the track, or something to give you an indication of what your client has selected. There is a way where you can give your clients remote control. So they will share control of your mouse, basically. And so like this website is from boomlearning.com, and you actually can click and drag the truck. And that's in the settings up there. If you hover over red and green box, it opens up and there's an option for remote control, and that allows your clients to take over your mouse, which again can get out of control very quickly. So you'll need to be able to know how to turn that off. And I don't know if, I don't think it's the same shortcut. I don't know the shortcut to turn off remote control, but you want to be careful using that. If your clients are using an iPad or an iPhone, the annotation controls on their side are different, and they might need an adult to do that. Okay, this is when you hit share screen and that option that was iPad or iPhone. Some of our clients are using AAC devices, and you want to be able to show them something new on an AAC device, and you have the same app at your house or on your device. Some of us have that, some don't. So maybe it's an app that you love and you can't find the website, but the app is great, so you want to play the app with them. On the share window, you would select iPhone or iPad, and you could have your phone or iPad hardwired in with your power cord, or on your device, if you swipe down from the top, there's an option for screen mirroring, and you can get your iPad or iPhone app to be the screen share. I haven't played with this yet, so I'm not really sure how well it works, but it is a really cool feature, and I'm looking forward to playing with it. So that is the end of my my slides, but I do want to go in and give you guys a live tutorial. So I will share my screen, and you can see, we'll just kind of play therapy here for a little bit. If you do have questions, I am happy to answer them. My email is robyn.wahl@eku.edu. All right, let me switch to a new share. So I just went to the top of my screen on the green and red and opened the little black bar that popped down, and I'm going to switch to a new screen. So hopefully you all are seeing a PowerPoint, kind of the instructor view, and you can see what I'm showing. So if my mouse hovers up here by the green and red, now you see what I was talking about. It opens up this bar that gives lots of options. So when I want to share or stop my share is here, or to share something new, I could pop up and you can see where I can choose the different screens that I have open. So I'm going to continue to share this screen. This is my desktop, so I hope that no emails pop in while we're talking. But this is how you could do a PowerPoint as part of therapy. And I just got this one off of Google, so there's a ton of stuff out there. You would just share the screen just like I did with the last few slides, and you could ask clients these questions and then move down to the next slide and just work your way through a PowerPoint presentation, but it's for therapy purposes. So I think that's very cool. Let me switch, and I'm going to change to a new screen. So we did that one, and that was fun. Now I'm going to share this. So hopefully now you are seeing readworks.org. This is a really cool reading passage website that I found. You can sort by grade level. If you see here on the bottom left, you can pick grade level. So I have a second grader who is into I can't spell, skateboarding. And I can turn that on and I can find out reading passages about, oh, of course, now it's not working. It worked earlier today. You can find articles about almost anything you want. It never works when I'm doing it live, but ReadWorks is a cool website. When it does work, they also have comprehension questions and vocabulary activities that go with the reading passage that you found. So that's always a fun one. As you can see on my screen, I have in my Chrome browser, I have multiple tabs open. So these are the tabs that I would be doing with Jimmy in therapy today. So I might start with this tab. And then once we finish that activity, we're going to move to this website. And then once we finish that activity, we'll move to the next website. I might just work my way across my tabs. So let me show you boomlearning.com. You have to sign up for an account, which is free now. My account went to sleep. There we go. And there are lots of activities that you pay for, but there are so many free activities on Boom Learning. So when you've got hours and hours to spend, y'all will nerd out like I did about all of the therapy activities that are out there. I believe most of these are for pediatrics, but I'll go back and show you what it looks like. Do I want to quit? Yes. So these are some of the activities that I've just downloaded because they're ones of the free ones. So they're in my library, but I can go to the store and I can search by things that are free. They do it by points. So you would pay money to get points. So there's no dollar value to things. There's a point value, but you could search by free items, and you could even specialize that you want them in special education free items. So many activities here. So I downloaded a few just to show you. So this is the one I had up, categories with R sounds, and it pops up and it's asking me which school supply is used to hold papers. So this is where a client could use that annotate feature. And I would go to the green and red at the top of my screen, which I have multiple screens here. So my green and red is on my desktop. And then I would turn on their annotation rights, and then they could draw on the screen or whatever it is they're choosing. Or if you give them remote control, they can click and drag and answer the questions. And then you can just go to the next one. Somebody's put a lot of time into making these, but there are so many of them, and it is so fun to see the activities. So that's Boom Learning, and I encourage y'all to play around with it. Okay, we did the reading passages that didn't work. I don't know how many of you guys know Kia.com, and somebody email me if I'm saying that wrong and send me the phonetic way to say it. But I have found that if you go to Kia.com, you can't find speech therapy stuff. So I always Google Kia speech therapy or speech language pathology, and then I get this huge list. So this was straight out of my Google search, and it has all of these activities that different SLPs have created and shared, and they're all free. There's about 5 or 6 different games that they have created. I chose one already for us. I just wanted to show you the list. But Battleship and Jeopardy and Matching. But here's the Jeopardy version. And this is the same idea. If you gave your client remote control, then they could click and open up the body idiom. Don't be so, is that how to spell nosy? Oh, good. So I got it right. I get my 200 points and then continue, and then somebody else could take turns. So this is a fun activity that somebody's already done for you. I can see me playing this for 10, 15 minutes with a client and look at all the different idioms we could get into and talk about them and know what it means and why it means that. And this could be a very cool therapy activity. And you saw how many there were. If you screen share just a worksheet, it's the same way. You would just have to have that worksheet pulled up on your laptop. And as long as that window is open when you go to screen share, it will give you that option to open that up. So I hope these ideas have been helpful. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the options for telepractice. But I just want to encourage you, you can do this. I know it is scary, and I know there's going to be logistics issues and technical issues. Many of you have 65 clients or more, and you're trying to figure out how to get them all in and how are you supposed to do this. It's going to be okay. Take a deep breath, play around with the technology, and I think you'll surprise yourself in how well you'll be able to pull this off. So hang in there and email me if you have any questions.